Hello and welcome. You are watching AIL TV, and this is the business show, AIL TV Business Show. And I'm a man called Jay. In this program, we are talking about renewable energy. You have heard what renewable energy is, and probably you might have some ideas of what to do or how to acquire renewable energy. But in this program, I have got a gentleman who has got a vast experience of renewable energy. He has installed probably many in Africa. He's going to tell you about it. And you see, when you look at Africa, is also trying to catch up. He's also embracing new technologies. But before we go any further, I just want let us start looking at what this renewable energy is. And when you see on the left hand panel there, you have got a gentleman whom I'm going to introduce to you very soon. But this is the work that he's been doing in Africa. So let us move on. I'm going to introduce to you a man called Tiyou. He is the master. He is the guru of renewable energy. I told you here at AIL TV, we are very serious. The other time we were talking about mango business from Ghana. Now we are talking about renewable energy in Africa and the man who brings it to you. Here is Tiyou.
Thank you very much, JJ. I think it's a very great pleasure for me to be here and also an honor. And I have to say, so your introduction was very, very flattering. I think, if I wasn't for my beautiful skin, I would have been blushing.
It's not about flattering. It is exactly what you do here. So, I would like you just to tell our viewers what is exactly renewable energy. These days there are so many buzzwords, but I have just put some pictures side by side for
Yeah.
us to give us a clear indication what is renewable energy.
Okay, that's an excellent question because I've always said to pretty much all the people I'm working with, including uh, my staff, but also the client, it's good to be able to properly grasp the concept because it has become a buzzword, which is good for us. But at the same time, it can also have like a drawback. So renewables energy, when we're talking about that, we're talking about sources of energy that could be harnessed and would deliver less emission to the atmosphere back in. And this is a source actually that normally should not be should not run short of. We should not run short of, right? We can constantly have access to this power. When we're talking about, for example, the sun is a planet. It's there. It's for us to harness it, right? So we know that it should not finish. That's why we call it renewables energy. That's in contrast with some, I would say, fossil fuel, right? When you have oil and coal and gas, obviously, if you tap too much into that, you run short of it after a certain time. So that's the quickest and shortest information I could give. So it's an energy that renews itself, but also an energy that is clean enough not to pollute, or at least pollute very much less the atmosphere.
Renewable energy. Let us just, before we go into the explanation, say, for example, in Africa, where is renewable energy more embraced, or where it is? Say, for example, can you give us some countries where renewable energy is being used?
Okay, again, it's great for me on this show because I can see, JD, you're asking the right questions. And in fact, one thing I want to say to demystify a little bit the industry, when referring to renewables energy these days, we tend to focus more or to talk more about, we're implying the new sources of renewables energy because there is a very much old source that I would say pretty much 60% of countries in Africa have been using since independence, which is hydro, right? So when hydro, it's a source of energy, as I say, which is there. The water is there, and obviously, if it's exploited properly, it doesn't have too much emissions. So you can have it in many countries in Africa. Now, to come back more specific to a question, when you were saying which country has, let's say, a big amount of renewables energy sources, right? I would say it depends which one you're talking about. The one source that is spread all across the continent, pretty much any country you go into, it's solar, right? So that's why we're talking so much about it, right? And now, if you're talking about where are the main market for solar, so you have the usual suspects. So we're talking about the likes of South Africa, Kenya, in East Africa, in Nigeria, Ghana. Those are the key people. But the good thing is there are many countries now that really want to be pushing and sort of catching up. So those are the main market, but definitely other people that are coming as well. If you're now talking about wind, right? So that's another source. At the difference of solar, you don't have it all across. Wind would tend to be more on the northern part of Africa, the eastern part, and also the southern parts. Central Africa and West Africa are not as much, I would say. There's not so much abundant wind for them to be able to exploit the resource. But the only caveat I want to put in there is very important for me to say that all we are describing here, that is as per the current technology, right? So whenever there is a new technology, you may find out that maybe tomorrow, in the next few years, we may be able to exploit as well wind in another part of the continent, for example, in West Africa and Central Africa, just because we have now sort of designed a tool that can allow us to exploit the technology. That's what I'm saying. That's the caveat. It's always related to the technology that you are using. So the technology actually determines also where really the market will be, if I could say that. I'd rather stop in here because obviously I want to make sure that you and your viewer, you stay with me because we have many things to say after that.
In the picture here, I can see you are working with a group of people. So
Yeah.
is this your team that you have assembled to work in Africa or to take renewable energy into Africa?
Well, in the picture that I have, that was a visit that we were making at a mini grid site in Kenya, by the way. So these are not my team, although I do have a team in Kenya. These are not people from my team, but that was part of the group I was part of when we visited this mini grid. And obviously, we took picture with the mini grid that is installed over there. But that is obviously giving you an idea of what those projects could be like. Obviously, this is a smaller side of the industry, but you can go all the way to a larger side where you have the utility scales and also the large scale solar. Those are projects that are most of the time connected to the grid.
Earlier, you have actually said in many parts of Africa, energy is all about hydro, and they are still actually building more bigger dams and stuff like that. So, what is the how easy is it to install solar energy or wind power? Because you have just spoken about wind, which is probably in North Africa. For some reasons, I don't understand why is it that we cannot actually have wind power in some parts of Africa. But let us deal with this question first. How easy is it, or how difficult is it, to bring renewable energy into some parts of Africa?
Okay, so because obviously I don't want to left you in the unknown, JJ, let me quickly respond, if you don't mind, to your wind question. It's very simple. The technology today, to be able to exploit commercially meaning that you can make money out of it, right? To be able to exploit the wind, you need a wind regime. So basically, you need to have a wind speed of about 6 meters per second. That's all. And now, if you look at the map of Africa, those regions where you have The 6 meters per second are in the north, the east, and the south. If you go in Central Africa and western part of Africa, the wind regime is slower. That's what I'm trying to say. And that's what I was saying earlier on, that tomorrow, when we have the right kind of technology that is able to run with wind speed lower than 6 meters per second, but still be able to allow us to develop projects that are commercially viable, I'm sure the industry will pick up as over there. That was just a tangent to respond very quickly to your question, to your initial question. Now, coming back into the main one that you asked, where you were saying, how easy is it to bring renewable? And I guess you meant how easy it is to bring solar into into a country. Well, I would say the answer is it's unfortunately not that easy. But this is not from the technical aspect. Most of the time, the challenges that we have to work around is the regulations. Because if you're selling renewables energy, it's energy, as the name says, and energy, that's power, right? So many countries, up until very recently, would not allow an independent power producer to form and also to deliver power to customers. Now, because I'm sure you you will know that many of these countries just have one player, which was the national utility. You will not be allowed to be able to form another company. Now, obviously, in many of these countries, the regulation is being changed to make it now of feasible. So, and after that, the other challenge that comes with that, with obviously the challenge of how do you, first of all, finance those projects, and to make sure that you can have a project that you can finance, right? It's good, first of all, for you to be able to establish that you have a credible customer, right? Because at the end of the day, so if we want to make it a business, not a charity, there's nothing wrong with charity, but we all agree that this is not how you're gonna spread the industry across the industry. So you need to have a credible customer, and having credible customer could be also one of the issue we're going through, right? Because there are different, how can I say that? There are different segments into the industry. You have the larger scale, to where most of the time the customer is the national utilities of the companies, and unfortunately, they're not always in very strong financial position. Then you have the private sector, or maybe and also the mini grid, right? So that this is where you have your rooftop solar that you can install right on the roof of a company or a hotel, like it could be a shopping mall, a cement factory, and so on and so forth. And then the third sector, obviously, I kept it obviously very simple, hopefully for people to still understand what I mean. The third segment. This is the very much the solar home system. These are small installation when you have a house with just one solar panel providing power just to charge up the mobile phone, and to make sure that you can also supply maybe one or two bulb into into the house. So it's not that easy, but this is not due to the technology. Technology per se, it's quite easy to understand and to grasp. It's more the, I would say, the regulations and all the processes, right, that needs to be done, and the admin work that needs to be done to make sure that it's up and running. But just want to finish on a positive note and say that things are improving, because I've been in the sector for more than 10 years. I can definitely tell you, right, 10 years ago, so renewable wasn't that trendy uh, uh, um, uh, industry that we now all talking about.
You have explained very well, but on the other hand, what I see, is there any competition between the companies? Say, for example, hydro and solar.
There would be a competition, and that's normal. And we need to have a competition for the simple. And this is again what I'm saying. When you step into solar, don't just step into it because it's fun, it's sexy, it looks sexy, whatever. What you need to understand where you're getting yourself into. Solar is part of the power industry, And when you talk about power industry, you have all type of energy sources that provide the commodity, which is power, to whoever is a customer. So you will have your fossil fuels, oil, gas, coal, but you also will have your renewables energies. You have solar, wind, and all of those sources are competing with one another. What's going to make a difference now is one source, right? Demonstrating that it becomes financially viable. Because one thing that is absolutely certain, and I know that, although I love renewables energy, and obviously I'm a strong advocate, I know that it's only going to make sense for the customer who's actually paying from his own pocket if commercially it makes sense. Basically, if you are able to demonstrate to them that, because they usually have two problems. They want stable power because they're fed up with power outages, but they also want to make sure that they have energy costs that are lower. So basically, all I'm trying to say, if you say you want to be competing with hydro as a solar producer, for example, you want to be able to show to your customer that my solar solutions not only going to give you good quality power, if not better in some instances, but also same price, but ideally cheaper prices. So yes, they are competing and they are meant to be in competition, but you want to have obviously a healthy competitions.
I want to frame this question so that it is understandable. Maybe it could be the right question, or I could be asking the wrong question altogether. Who is the biggest player in renewable energy, or the biggest supplier into Africa?
Okay. And it's great because that would allow me to talk about one of the programs that we are doing, just to that sort of tap into this question. So in the sector, just to make it simple, you have the equipment suppliers, right? And then you have the project developers. You can also call them project promoters, if you want. You have what we call the EPC, engineering, procurement, construction. So the EPC, just consider that this is your contractor. This is the guy who actually build the farm, and then you have obviously the client. Now, to respond to the questions, because I want to give you like a sort of holistic view. Obviously, the customer most of the time would be, the African guy, right? Whether it's a household, as a company, is a country, that's usually the off-taker. Now, who is the equipment supplier? So 60% of equipment, right? The main equipment we're talking about usually here, the panels, solar panels, and the inverter. The inverter here, it's this device that will convert your DC power, so your direct current, into the AC. Why do we need it? Simply because the equipment that we need in our houses, in our companies, need AC, but solar will give you DC. So you need a device in between that convert the DC into the AC. So these inverters and also the solar panels, more than 60% come from China. This is a reality today, right? So is it going to change, especially in light of COVID? Hopefully, who knows? But at the moment, so the 60% of the market is held by China. So that's the equipment supplier. Now, when you talk about now the developers and also the developers, that this is your promoter. It's a little bit like when you have in a real estate, you have the real estate promoter, you have the builder, and you have the equipment supplier. I've talked about equipment supplier already. Now, your real estate promoter, which is what we call the solar developer or solar promoter. So most of them, I would say a good 80-90% are foreign companies, not African companies. Nothing wrong with that. This is not a criticism. I'm just saying this is what obviously the industry is seeing at the moment, right? So they'll be coming most of the time from Europe, some now from Asia. So Asia, essentially China and India, or maybe the Americas. And it's actually the same as well for the EPC. which is your EPC, as I say, is your contractors. So now, for those guys coming from foreign countries, the key countries that you will see, so those are quite developed into the industry. You have Germany, you have France, you have Spain. They are very strong. A little bit of the UK. So yes, that's what we have. And why I was referring to the program I was discussing is because we believe part of the way we need to spread the industry, to grow the industry across the continent, is to also make sure that we can allow enough solar developers that are sort of homegrown, or maybe in our local solar developer, to be able to tap into some of these opportunities that those big foreign companies will not touch because too small for them. So this is why, for example, our company, what we've done, we've launched a program which is a virtual online masterclass to train a number of solar developers to be able to do that. And we're looking to be, our objective will be to train 1,000 solar developers. Why 1,000? Simply, we want to have at least 20 in each of the 55 countries in Africa. That's just a quick
Very good.
idea.
You see, now let us look at the affordability of this renewable energy. Myself, I have actually bought some solar panels and some LED lights, not LED lights, actually solar lamps,
Yeah.
and taken them to the villages. But I thought that they would work, but they work sometimes, sometimes they don't work. So what is the affordability of these solar panels in terms, say, for example, of everyday person?
Yeah. So what is the okay? So in your specific example, you talked about a rural customer, right? Who will, I guess, want to replace his kerosene lamp with maybe a solar lamp. That's the example that you take into account here. So this is where one of the reasons we wanted to tackle that by launching the Renewables in Africa website, our website, which we started initially as a blog, but obviously now it has evolved into a proper platform. Because what we observe is most of the time, people in Africa, right, when they're looking at a solar product, there's only one criteria they will look at, which is the price. Which is, I think we all do that, right? So we all African, so that's where we need to be looking at things. However, this is not sufficient enough. And I'm always talking an analogy, right? Just to help people to better understand what I'm saying. When you want to buy a car, right? So obviously the price will be important, but this is not the only element that you will look at. You want to make sure that the fuel consumption, because on the long term, it makes sense. You want to make sure that obviously your car has a good engines. You want to make sure that the mileage, if it's a second-hand car, you want to know the mileage is not too it's not too big, so that you know that you can use that for a certain time. So same thing. So when you buy a solar product, it's important to make sure that you look at quality product, and there's a key thing that you want to be looking at. So I suspect in the example that you've taken, so maybe the only criteria that was looked at to take those solar products was the fact that was the price, right? They were cheap, so that we took them back into the village. But wherever we buy, wherever you take as a device, you always should be thinking about the maintenance, right? You want to make sure that you have one thing that is solid enough. If you know that you're going to take them in a place where there's no maintenance whatsoever, then make sure that it may be worth taking something a little bit more expensive, but you know that is almost maintenance free. So this way, you know that you can take advantage of this purchase, for a long period of time. And I think, unfortunately, low quality products are, I think, you have a plethora of it in the continent, and that's why people are losing faith into the industry.
let me go back here because, as I said, I can still see that the work is going on. Viewers will see these pictures. These are very, very heavy industrial solar panels. And you mentioned these solar panels are in Kenya.
Yeah.
So
Then we can end the picture there. Yeah.
okay.
We've been involved into I think renewables in Africa. What we are positioned into the what we call the project origination and project development. It simply means we originate or create a project from scratch, pretty much, right? Create the needs, make sure that we find the customer, and set up the right team around it, and then have developed those projects and finally bring a contractor to get them to build. So we have been involved in, and we involve in many projects in different countries in the continent. That's really why, for example, the company we call ourselves Renewables in Africa. I know sometimes you may be only working in Senegal and decide that, okay, because Senegal is an African country, I can call myself Renewables in Africa. But in that case, we truly mean it. So we're looking at the continent just basically is our home, it's my home, right? And then pretty much anywhere in the continent we feel comfortable. So we have projects in various countries, not just in Kenya. But it's fair to say that Kenya, it's obviously one of the main markets in Africa, and as such, one of our main markets.
This question, as you have mentioned that Kenya probably it is your main market, could you just explain why that is? Is that because Kenya they are more advanced and they embrace things quicker, or?
I obviously I don't want to necessarily sort of forget the other countries, because that won't be fair on other people that are doing fantastic things in other. Because just for the anecdote, actually, when I started the company, initially started looking at the Botswana market, which is obviously a much more smaller countries, but obviously we then evolve and move into other places for various reasons. So Kenya, I have to say, yes, it's a country that, for me, because if you talk to Kenyan, they would have a different view. But for me, they tend to embrace the industry a lot faster than some other people. Part of it was actually enabled by the mobile money, because what happened is what has spread all across Kenya was actually the pay-as-you-go solar, right? Which is essentially installation whereby a solar supplier will come and install a solar system, on your roof, and you will pay over time, and you will pay as per the usage. But obviously, as opposed to just relying on you collecting the money physically, or maybe keep bank transfer, which we know it's not that quite common in Africa. People will do that with their mobile phone. And the mobile phone, if you're talking about the Silicon Valley of Africa, it has to be East Africa. And with Kenya being almost the San Francisco of it. So the mobile money, the likes of the M-Pesa and Copa, that's really what has boosted the market over there. And as the market was developing, you then had a lot of multinational organization in the sector that then came in and then helped develop and grow this sort of local market. And from there, it has sort of picked up in the country. So that, for me, just in a summary, without going into too much detail, one of the reasons Kenya would be one of the main markets. Yeah.
Have you also looked into like the Horn of Africa, say for example, Somali, Ethiopia, Sudan, and then you go down to Zambia, Zimbabwe? What is the situation there as in renewable energy?
I have to say, and this is the strong reason I'm really encouraging people to step into the industry, young people or people that want to retrain a new career to come into the industry, right? I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm saying it's come because clearly the future is bright. There are more and more countries that open up to solar. And if you're looking at all the potential that the continent has, it's just insane, right? So those countries that you mentioned, or those regions, like for example, the Horn of Africa. So you have a country like Ethiopia, big country. There's so many things that could be done there. So Ethiopia, for example, is a country that interests us quite a lot, I have to say. So we've not yet done something concrete over there, but it's a country that interests us quite a lot. We have some of our partners that I'm sure they wouldn't mind me mentioning them. Clean Energy for Africa. These are young guys and girls, from Sudan. Very, very dynamic, doing a fantastic job, and through them as well. So we have a country that Sudan obviously is going through, a period of transition, revolution and so on and so forth. But it's a very, very dynamic country. So that's definitely a thing as well, a country people have to watch. And what people don't know, it's a country with more than 80 million people, there, if I'm correct. Now, when you come down south, yes, so obviously when you go down south, the main market and also the main market for the whole continent is South Africa. So all these countries around obviously would tend to be will be driven by the South African market. Obviously, they will tend to want to develop in solar too. You mentioned Zimbabwe. I've been to Zimbabwe. For me, it's a country full of potential. I strongly believe that Zimbabwe is punching way below their weight, way below. I think the country, there's just so much potential. Obviously, they have issues that they need to address, but I'm sure it's going to be addressed one day. And once it's done, I'm very, very confident about what's gonna come out of that. So yeah, there are many, many, many great potential markets. Absolutely.
So now let me ask you this question, because for me, I'm very, very, very passionate about Africa and Africans and seeing Africans doing things for themselves. This is the question I'm going to put to you, because one time I was attending a conference and they were talking about renewable energies, and they were talking about bringing machineries from China and stuff like that. But I asked a question that they wouldn't really answer properly. When you bring these machines or you bring these components, do you train African engineers so that when there is no Chinese in sight, that they will actually be in control of their own, technology or something like that?
Yeah. So I don't want to get myself in trouble with them, with all these companies, but my diplomatic answer would be, I would like to think that a lot more could be done in terms of training on the ground of the people. I strongly believe that. And it's not just training people, because as I mentioned to you, the training program that we've created exactly to address what you're talking about here. Because I've always said, right, that's the vision I see, right? I don't want Africa to only be a market, because that's what we've been for pretty much any and every industry. This is a new industry that's forming. That's opportunity. We should be more than a market. We should also be a player. And for you to be a player, that means you need to be sitting around the table where people are making decisions, either as a developer, either as an investor, but basically. So clearly acquiring those skills, it's important. And for us, for example, Renewables in Africa, that's what the program that we created really addresses, right? So really developing those skills, because we've learned that. I'm grateful to have learned it, right? That's because, like I say, what I didn't say is I didn't always work in renewables, right? I was initially an automotive engineer. I didn't know anything about renewables energy. I had to learn it all by myself. But in the program that we put, basically, instead of people going 10 years to get to the stage, we're saying them, okay, we've compressed it, put a knowledge there in order for you to fast track this process so that you can be up and running much faster than you would do actually by yourself. So that's one initiative. So I believe companies that come in working, I think not enough. That's actually the real answer. I think a lot more could be done to make sure that we train people on the ground. But then my personal criticism also to my brothers and sisters in Africa, right? You have a lot of them that are qualified, that have degrees, whatever. They even the knowledge, they are inside the industry. But what they're lacking is the confidence then, right? Because they always prefer to work under somebody because they don't want to be in the front seat because they're obviously being I'm here and I know it's a challenging job, right? So you want to be able to take the hate when it comes, but also be responding, make sure be able to deliver. So a lot of people have this knowledge. A lot of people will acquire the knowledge, but always lack the confidence. So that's also what I'm saying. Part of what we're doing is not just to give the skills. Skills, I know they're clever enough to get it, even if we still need a lot more to at least get it. But then we need people now to get the confidence to be sitting in front and say, hey, I am now, Mrs. or Mrs. So-and-so. I have my company. I develop, I invest, or manufacture component, and I can also bring my innovations that's going to be helpful for Africa and also the rest of the world. That's actually how I see things.
I know you are holding some awards there in your hands. So, what is this award about?
Oh, that's an accolade that I had. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. I can't remember exactly. That was for impact investment in the continent, because obviously through our activities, so we like to think that hopefully we bring in some light into some areas and also bring in some investors with us. And clearly, we're hoping to be in a position as well to be a full investor ourselves. So we're working towards it. And yeah, so that's what it was all about. It was obviously it's a good recognition, and we were pleased to have received it. But clearly, for us, the end goal is to be able to, I would say, to bring the solutions back into the continent. And then, so basically our motto for us is to bring back power to Africa. And that's really what makes us happy. And even more, when we see some other people that we believe we would have impacted a little bit, contributed to the journey, for them to come into the sector and then start delivering. That for me is is by far the best recognition.
I just want to ask you the final question here.
Okay.
I know you touched it. You touched on something. I just want to know, what are the challenges that you are facing, and probably your team, actually, to bring these things together? Because there is finance, there is infrastructure and strategies. What are the challenges, and where do you think renewable energy in Africa will be, probably, let us say, in 10 years' time?
Okay, so the challenges that we see, so they are kind of a threefold, right? So the first one is, I would say, clearly the regulation, because in there are many countries for me that will be able to embrace solar like yesterday. Just to give you a concrete example, a lot of industries and companies, they're facing power challenges just like any household. They will be happy to consider the solar solution, but if it's not allowed, if it's not permitted by the law, obviously they can't go ahead. That's an example of some of the regulation that we're talking about. And then when there is a regulation in place, sometimes, as I say, they just too much admin work, making it cumbersome for people. So that's just one an example of challenge. Then you have the part of it also will be the technical challenge, technical challenges as well that that you need to be facing. Again, if you give an example just to illustrate that, A lot of people that would approach us that want to go solar, right? Let's say, for example, a cement factory. Most of the time, this is the cement factory. They will be in the middle of the town, right, or at least an industrial area. So they want to have a rooftop solar solution, right? So you can work out so what is the size of the system that should be good for them. But if they don't have enough roof capacity for you to install enough solar, you then it then becomes a little bit difficult to give them the solution they're looking for. And if there is no land around them that could be exploited, it makes it a little bit more challenging. I'm sure there's always something that we can do, but what I'm trying to say is actually this is an example whereby you can see even the actual the premises can restrict the size of the right, what would have been the right system for them. So that's an example of technical challenge. And I'm obviously going to be finishing up with the financial challenges, right? Because many of these projects, especially if you're talking about if you're talking about the utility scale, the big project, that's what all the big funds, banks, investors like to jump into because they are sizable, there are lots of money to be made, the margin are correct and are good for them. For smaller projects, there are less funds. I mean, the avenue for funding it's a lot more reduced, which means that it becomes a little bit challenging. Why? Because most of the customers in Africa, for example, will not be prepared to pay uh, all in one go, right? Straight from their pocket. They rather have a finance solution. A finance solution means suppose that you have an investor happy to put money to for the installation to be done as of right now, and for customer to pay over time. So that's an example of what we have. I can add a fourth one quickly. I would say the behavioral change because you have customer whereby, and I've seen it all the time. I have to say, it's just difficult for them to make up their mind, just because all of us, when we have something we are used to, like I say, people will always say, uh, the devil we know is better than the one we don't. So you have people, you design a solution, it all makes sense. They can see they'll be making savings, and all the reassurance visibly have been given to them, but they still will struggle to make up a decision. It has nothing to do with actual decision with solution anymore. It's just here, the mental blockage. So those are the kind of challenges. And where renewables are in Africa will be in the next 10 years. Well, for us, clearly, we want to be able to provide a holistic solution to the continent, which is on the technical level, on the financial level, but also on the media level. Because all of that for us allowed us to be able to say to people, we fund your project, we develop your project, and we promote it just to make sure that there's a lot more awareness about the industry.
Tony, Tiyou, you have given us a little bit of insight into renewable energy, but I'm sure we will have to have you back because really there are plenty of things to discuss and there are plenty of things actually to look into. You
Okay.
know, I know we have gone into the economics side of things. Um, what I will do actually, I would like actually to pair you with another person who is
Mm-hmm.
actually who is doing business, but probably his business will profit more from what you are doing. So
Okay.
this is what I want to see. I just want to compare the hardships or the challenges that you guys are going through. As you know, man, Africa is always, it has got so many surprises. So,
Yeah.
but we are getting there, slowly, slowly. But we don't know how
Step
long
by
it is
step.
going to take. Tony, to you, thank you very much for being our guest here on AIL TV on the business show. We want to hear more of these. And next time when you are on the program, maybe you will have to tell us more which countries you guys you're working in. I know we want, as foreign countries are actually benefiting more from us, but we also want to see we benefit from what we are giving up.
Exactly.
So thank you
Exactly.
very much. And until next time, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Tony Tiyou. Until then, stay tuned. This is AIL TV, and I am a man called Jay.